Welcome to the Into the Wilderness podcast. I'm your host, Timothy Regal. Today I have with me Coach Bahman. Coach Bahman is a high performance coach. He works with business executives, top level corporate professionals, professional athletes, and high performers from all walks of life to help them with personal and professional performance, managing self-sabotage, learning mental strategies, setting and reaching goals, and achieving alignment between their values and actions. So Bahman, thanks for joining me today. I'm glad to have you on with us.
Appreciate that, man. It's my favorite topic, man. Killing porn, killing the porn industry, getting rid of it, making sure it no longer exists and it's no longer part of our lives or society. I'm excited, man. Porn and performance have been sworn enemies since the beginning of both of them. And I think we need to dive into that, man.
Before we get into that, how do you define high performance? So you coach people to be high performers to get their most potential. How do you define that high performance?
Absolutely. Well, my mission in life is making high performance accessible for everybody. And that you can see that on the site, on the Twitter, wherever you see it. I stand by that. And the reason why I say that is that I see performance as an engine, and everybody has a different engine. But the engine doesn't do anything without the parts around it, right? A car is useless if it's just an engine. It can be a very impressive, nice V8 big turbo diesel engine, it can be very big, and the ones those American engines, right? Loud and noisy, but it doesn't really do anything if there's not a smart design around it. And that's what I think is what we need to learn most in life. Instead of focusing on the engine, which could be IQ, could be EQ, could be whatever you feel your potential is. We need to talk about the skills surrounding your potential, right? And skills can be goal setting, skills can be discipline, skills can be your physical and mental fitness. And I think when you take a person with an extraordinary engine, for example, highly intelligent, gifted individuals, which I usually work with, you take that engine and you build a smart machine, a smart car around it, then you can see pretty incredible results. I always say, imagine all the Elon Musks and Steve Jobs and Bill Gates that we lost through poor education systems or poor parenting or poor societies. Imagine how many world-changing leaders we've lost throughout the years just because they weren't recognized, they weren't nurtured, they weren't taken care of. And some people figure it out on their own, just like some of the people I just mentioned, and some people they need a little bit of help and some support, or maybe just get unlucky in life. And that's what I try to do. I try to translate these topics for the smart people and also take the lessons from the smart people and how they do life, how they pursue and approach life, and translate that to people with a regular engine so they can still become pretty impressive machines in their own right.
So do you think that everyone has the potential to be a high performer within them? Or are some people just more naturally gifted towards that and other people maybe naturally ungifted towards that? They may be a little lazy or something, but do you feel that like everyone has that potential within them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think high performance is accessible for everybody. But what I mean by that is, of course, everybody's intellectual potential is different. Some people are smart and some people are not smart, right? That's just a reality of life. But there's two ways to approach greatness, right? And one way is it to approach problem solving in a very creative and disruptive way and solve very complex problems in a short period of time, or to repeat solving a very simple problem a million times over and over and over again, and by sheer grit and discipline becoming a master in what you do, right? The best noodle salesman in Tokyo, you can't tell me that's not a high performer, right? The guy probably made noodles for 75 years straight. He knows everything there is to know about noodles, right? Fisherman somewhere living in Alaska, right? Fishing in the ice, animal, knows everything about fish. That's a high performer, right? He's been fishing his whole life. He's been on the boat 8 months a year. That's everything he does. And just by pure grit, discipline, and commitment, you can achieve greatness. You just need to align with your biological potential, right? What am I most inclined to be successful at? If I'm not smart, then should I go for a startup, right? Should I be a programmer? Should I be a developer? Or should I do something more practical? Should I just solve something simple for some people and do it over and over again for a long period of time?
Do you think a lot of people try to force themselves into something that they're not, and maybe that's why they're not performing at the level they could be?
Absolutely. That's what we're taught, right? Education system teaches us at a very young age to force ourselves into molds that we're not supposed to be in, right? As a young kid, we're already being graded and judged on a variety of classes and subjects that it's impossible to shine in every single one of them. And if we do, that's usually exceptional. Most of the time, we shine in a couple of them, and we're very mediocre in some of them. And then that mediocrity in that field, we're being punished for that, even though we're shining in some other fields, right? So we're already from a very young age being taught to fit a certain mold that we're not really supposed to fit. So when you don't take the strengths of a child and you don't feed those strengths, but you only focus on pulling up the weaknesses, right? You create mediocre children because you don't allow them to nurture and feed their strengths to become great. You just try to force them into an all-rounder, and that's what school really expects from us. So I think it's in our nature in a way. It's taught at a very young age to become a person that we shouldn't really become. Right? Whether it's in a corporate environment where you see that trend continues, right, in the office, working with people and focusing on a lot of different things that did we really sign a contract to do that? Right. That's a question that a lot of people ask themselves, right? The great resignation, a lot of people quitting their jobs, working remotely, moving across the country, living in other countries, restarting their life. I think it shows that a lot of people are waking up to a lot of lies that society have told us, right? A lot of promises from school system, from the government, from our parents even. You just work hard and everything will fall into place. Well, there's a whole generation that's finding out that working hard is not enough. Right?
So a lot of times it's kind of the old adage of work smarter, not harder. Instead of trying to, like you say, improve your weaknesses, try to accelerate your strengths.
Yes.
How does someone figure out what their strengths are?
It's very interesting. There's a process usually that I discover that starts with really committing to self-improvement. So everything starts, in my opinion, with self-improvement. Right? A lot of people try to figure out the answers from a place of low confidence. And I'm sure you've seen that as well with your clients, where how do I quit porn, Timothy? How do I stop this addiction? Well, you're starting from a place of low confidence. You don't trust yourself. You don't love yourself. You don't take care of yourself. So how do you expect to get to any answers from that state of mind, physically and mentally? We need to invest in ourselves. We need to get fit. We need to eat better. We need to sleep better. We need to take care of ourselves. We need to get better friends. We need to consume more positive content. We need to delete TikTok and all the girls shaking their ass in your face. All that stuff and all those triggers, we need to get it out of here so we can get some clarity. And from that clarity, we can now start to look at the world and ourselves differently, with more confidence and with more commitment to the things that we actually try to achieve without all the distractions, right? And then I think the biggest step is your network, surrounding yourself with some high quality people that don't bullshit you, right? That will tell you the truth about the things that you're doing and if they're beneficial to you or not. My friends confront me with my weaknesses all the time. And they also, compliment my strengths from time to time. But if you have friends, the lower tier of quality, then usually they wouldn't even care that much about your strengths and your weaknesses. They just want the comfort of being around you and not being alone. Right? So your network is huge. Your clarity through self-improvement, I feel, is huge. So those steps, I think, are pretty big. And then, of course, what I see mostly with the most successful smart people in the world is that they actually don't even touch their weaknesses way until they're maybe somewhere in their 60s and they have the luxury financially, but also time-wise to, maybe get a little bit fit, maybe focus on their health, focus on their friends or relationships. Up until that point, they've just been exploiting their strengths to the maximum extent. I know I'm good at this. I'm just going to do this for 18 hours a day and nothing else. I don't want to cook. I don't want to decide what clothes I put on in the morning, right? Mark Zuckerberg, the mindset is just minimize the amount of useless decisions. It doesn't matter what I put on. I put on the same every single day because I don't want to waste brain space, right? So they maximize their strength to the fullest extent and ignore whatever they're not good at. Just delegate it. Get some people or give it to somebody else or just straight up ignore it. Right?
So is that some of the difference that some of those people have? I mean, you mentioned Mark Zuckerberg, and when you think of high performers, people who are at the top level of their game, you think of Zuckerberg, you mentioned Steve Jobs, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. To me, that Jordan Belfort from the Wolf of Wall Street, he comes to mind. Elon Musk, these guys that are just crushing everything they do, and everything they do seems to be successful. Is what do they have that everybody else doesn't have? Or what are they doing that everybody else isn't doing?
There's a lot, actually. I'm working on a webinar right now, the 10 secrets of high performance, and I'm rolling out soon. And there are many, many, many different things. But a couple of things that are interesting to know is alignment most of the time. And by that, I mean they're driven by higher values. Right? They're not driven by the lower values that usually drive people that, or they assume that drive people, right? Fame, notoriety, money, attention, validation. Those drivers, they can definitely burn pretty bright and burn intensely, and they can be the fire that you use to fuel your engine. But they also burn out very quickly. Right? We know how fast and how easy you can get used to money. It's terrifying, actually. So it doesn't really change no matter how much money you make. After a while, you buy the same thing over and over again. And smart people usually realize that they need to be driven by a higher value. And by that, usually every one of them will say, I'm trying to help people, whatever way, right? Whatever problem they're trying to solve is usually rooted into helping people. So whenever you get to the gist of it, of every high performer, even Kobe Bryant, even Michael Jordan, the chase of greatness is rooted into helping people, whether it's their family, their friends, their neighborhood, or maybe the world, right? It's always rooted into a higher value because they know the higher value is a sustainable driver for their pursuit, for their day-to-day actions, and it won't burn out. Another one that I think is quite interesting is obsessive curiosity, like finding that one topic that you just never get tired about learning, right? And more and more and more. It just does not bore you ever. Right? It doesn't matter how small it is. Anytime you jump into the topic, you can lose yourself for 4 or 5 hours straight. And that's what a lot of high performance have. Like, for example, Joe Rogan once said in his podcast, I try to minimize the amounts of hobbies that I have because I know if I'm going to jump into it, I'll lose 2 weeks of my life. I'm obsessive and I'm very careful with what I spend my time on. So that curiosity is really difficult. They have a lot of research and a lot of studies around how do you nurture curiosity in a child. It's incredibly difficult once you haven't been taught by your parents to be curious about things or been taught by school. It's very difficult to develop it in a later life. They've learned in many studies, but it's still possible, right? If you're motivated enough. So that curiosity is usually integral part of who they are, and it can lean into obsessiveness. So that's why they're super, super critical with what they spend their time on. And usually what you'll see with these high performers and that their life is quite one-dimensional. Right? It's just, I run this company and that's pretty much it. What do you, I play soccer and that's it. And what do you do? Well, I'll play basketball. That's pretty much it. They don't really get lost into other things. And once they do, you see the decline sometimes in their career when they get a little bit lost in modeling or business or whatever else things they're doing, right? So those are definitely some tendencies between all of them.
So what's the downside to that? I think the upside, like you say, is they're a high performer. They're doing well at what they do. I like how you say, chasing greatness is rooted in helping people. one of the reasons people are successful is because they're working towards something bigger than themselves. It's not just about the money. It's not just about the fame, the validation, like you say. It's something greater than themselves. It's for the greater good. But you say you get hyper focused on that. You get obsessive with it. So what are some potential downsides to that? Because you do see a lot of these people who are highly successful have skeletons in their closet. You know, they have crutches that they lean on. I think of, we talked about Michael Jordan. You know, he's a gambling addict, basically. You know, Kobe Bryant has had sexual things in the past. You hear a lot about these guys. There's always something, it seems like, with all of them. So, you know, talk about that and the downside of some of these high performance.
Yep. Well, I love to always refer to Nietzsche, the German psychologist, psychotherapist, philosopher. He speaks about the Übermensch, right? The human that decides for himself what is important for me, what are my values, and how am I going to design my life. He said, you know, God is dead, and there are no beautiful surfaces without terrible abysses. And if you stare into abyss long enough, it will stare back into you. Right? That's all the quotes that are from Nietzsche, which I think super relevant for high performance, because these people in a way deem themselves as an Übermensch. What you often see with high performance is that they're not religious. They're quite anti-religion, and then they're critical of religion as well. They're very selfish to the point of narcissism, sociopathy almost. Right? They're really, the whole life is just designed around them and their goals and what they need to achieve. And everybody around them is always depending on their health and success. So they are also catering to their success and their benefit. So that can create a very narcissistic, very selfish, and a very elitist personality sometimes, where a person actually starts to believe that they are greater than the people that are around them. And that is actually a one-man show. And that is not a team effort, which it always is. Greatness is always a team effort, right? Whether it's all the doctors and the dietitians and the advisors and the mindset coaches of Michael Jordan, whether it's the thousands of employees of Elon Musk, whatever it is, greatness is always a team effort. And you always need to delegate your weaknesses to people that are great at that, covering your weaknesses, right? So there are definitely some challenges there, right? Especially if you dive into the topic of a Übermensch of Nietzsche. You read a lot about what these people go through and why they sometimes, they lose it, they snap. Gambling addiction is definitely very much aligned with these creative, high-risk adrenaline junkies, competitive driven, ego-driven maniacs. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked earlier about what I specifically work with is men battling with porn addiction and sexual addiction. Do you see a lot of that as well amongst people who are high performers?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. Now, I love this topic so much, Timothy. I'm so happy you touch on this. I believe now what's happening within high performance is that these people are looking to, well, their whole life is based around putting themselves into extremely high stress environments, excelling in that area, and then relieving the stress through whatever methods they have: alcohol, drugs, girls, prostitution, whatever. So now, being that these, in the past, I mean, maybe 30 years ago, world moved fast. But in the past, prostitution and access to women was very much limited to a very small percentage of very wealthy, successful men, right? Or dirtbags, scumbags, right? Now, with the coming of the internet and OnlyFans and TikTok and Instagram, the market has opened up in a way that it's targeting regular people as well. And I feel that these regular people who usually would have just focused on getting a girl, socializing, social skills, right, building a family, getting some kids, and would not be would not be confronted with this kind of content or these kinds of options are now falling into the gateway drug, right? Social media. And I believe surely that social media is the gateway drug to prostitution. And it starts at that place now because we're all being confronted with it because they're promoting themselves on these apps. So as a young child dealing with high stress environments, you already are learning to relieve stress through masturbation initially, right? And that can be the gateway drug to later on, hey, now that I got money, I could actually pay to have these girls. I can be with these girls. Like these girls can talk to me like they like me and listen to me, and give me their attention and their time of day. And I know usually they would never do that, but I mean, I got money and I'm stressed out, I'm lonely, so why not? It's a pretty dangerous situation overall, definitely.
So a lot of these people who are high performers had access to this, and they use that as their stress relief, which is a lot of, I found in my coaching, a lot of what men do. It's their coping mechanism, it's their stress relief, it's their escape. So whereas, yeah, in the past you had to be a high performer, rich, famous, whatever, to kind of have these luxuries.
Yes.
That can be your vices, your escape. Whereas now, like you say, the Pornhub, the OnlyFans, all those other things are allowing the average person a glimpse of that sort of thing that they can indulge in and relieve
Yes.
their stress with.
Yes.
And we're higher stress now anyway.
Overall, yes.
You see, I've seen a million studies that say we're the most stressed out generation ever, but we have the most conveniences ever. So then you ask yourself, are those conveniences really, really worth it? One thing you've said that I think is an excellent statement. I want you to expound on it a little bit. You said high stress environments don't change who you are; they reveal who you are. Can you explain that a little bit?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, we wear a lot of masks, right? At work, in our family, towards our kids, social media, with friends. But it's actually physically impossible to keep that mask on in a high stress environment. Because when we are under high stress and our brain is being pounded with cortisol, at that time, our executive functions become very weak. And the only thing we can rely on is fight or flight, right? Our basic primitive instinct. And that's, in a way, reveals our true character, right? Who are you when shit hits the fan? When it's time to fight and defend your family, when it's time to fight for your country, when it's time to react in a deadly, semi-deadly car accident, right? Who are you in those moments? Because we can tell a lot of stories to ourselves and to other people about who we are. But when it really comes down to it and we have to react from instinct, right? Out of self-defense or in other stressful situations, competitively, maybe, do we fold or do we become the victor? Right? Do we act aligned with who we truly believe we are, or have we just been a good storyteller to people and to ourselves? So I think when we are in high stress, for example, it's funny when you see people who play games, even Monopoly. It's the nicest guys become assholes. Like, what the hell is this guy? He's cheating, like yelling, cursing all the time. He's annoying. I don't even want to play with this guy. But that's because his mask has been very meticulously created, very well thought out. This guy is actually secretly an asshole, and he needs to do a lot of self-work. He needs to work on that area of himself, because that competitive environment reveals who he truly is in the moments when he's not able to maintain that mask, that social mask, right? And most of the time, smart people are a lot better at masking who they truly are than less intelligent people. So a lot of times the average or less below average intelligent people don't change that much in competitive or stressful environments. It's the smart people who do, right? Because they are really, really gifted in storytelling and manipulation.
So how does someone balance all of this? Obviously, people want to be high performers. They want to do their best, perform to their best, to reach their highest potential. They want to be successful in work and business and social aspects and relationships and all these things. They want to be high performers. But how do you balance that while avoiding some of the things we've just been talking about? These traits that tend to go along with it, the addictiveness, the kind of the narcissism, the high stress. How do they balance that and achieve their goals, but yet avoid some of these pitfalls that go along with it?
Yeah, that's why I don't like the word balance. I think balance is the reason why so many people are burning out, right? Because the balance, perception of balance is we put equal effort in everything. But that's just impossible when you know that the coming 20, 25, 30 years of your life needs to be obsessively focused on one thing. You have 20 years of a basketball career and that's it. So those 20 years are going to be basketball. That's it. There's no excuse. You might get kids, might get a wife, might buy some houses, do some business, but those things, if you don't put people in position to create harmony, and that's what I like to call instead of balance, then everything is going to crumble. And by harmony, I mean, we need to first of all be very honest about our weaknesses and our strengths. Not just what we actually can and cannot do, but also what we're not able to invest time in. We could do it if we put time into it, but what's the cost risk analysis here, right? Do actually the benefits outweigh the downsides of investing time into, I don't know, becoming a better father? Is that something we should do now? Or am I the best version of myself as a father if I just make sure my family is good and I make the most money I can and become the greatest at what I am and focus on being a father later? So these are all these considerations that we have to make. But while we're making those considerations, I think the biggest mistake that high performers are making is not communicating what they're actually going through and taking people and friends and family with them along in their journey and in their decision-making process. Like, this is what I'm doing, and for this reason, and this is how you can support me in that process. And then this is how you're going to benefit from it if you allow me to focus myself obsessively in this area, right? Then you need to surround yourself with people who are supportive to that mission. Right? But communication is the biggest one to create harmony, right? Sometimes, like Gary Vee said in one of his videos, they ask him, hey, do you ever see your kids? Like, oh, that's a good question, I guess. You know, he doesn't look like the guy who's with his kids every day. And he said, yes, I do. But I try to have harmony. I try to spend time with my kids sometimes for a week straight, and then maybe I don't see him for 2 weeks. And that's just my life. And that's how I've designed it. And by being open and in communication with them, everybody understands and everybody's okay with it. Right? But if I try to balance it all, everything crumbles.
So it's not a matter of being able to spin a bunch of plates. It's spinning the right plates.
Yes. And getting people to spin the plates for you, right? Getting the right people to spin those plates for you when you're not there. You can do it, but you just need to delegate. And a lot of high performers, they don't like to delegate, right? They either sometimes hire family members and put them into positions and they mess up. Then they get traumatized and they never want to hire anybody again. Or they get a personal assistant and they don't work on the level that they need them to work, or they're not great at communication. So usually they're pretty horrible at delegating different things to different people. The ones who actually achieve super greatness, like elite level, they're usually great at delegating, right? Like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, right? These guys didn't do their business deals. They didn't sit on the table and do these business deals. They were playing basketball, right? They were not doing their own taxes. They had a great Jewish lawyer, probably, right? These guys had great professionals, talented, gifted professionals in those positions doing those things for them. Right? And that's delegation. That's a skill.
And I think that's an element that a lot of people have, is being able to find those right people. And even if they don't know everything about it, you know, we mentioned Elon Musk earlier. The guy went from processing credit card payments to building spaceships to making cars. Like, there's no way he could have that much knowledge about it, but he found the right people to do it, and he just had the vision. Absolutely. So a lot of performance, I think, is not that you have to have all the strengths, but finding other people who have those strengths.
Absolutely. Putting them in a position and then allowing them to make mistakes, take risks, learn, develop, and accepting that they will never be on the same level of intensity as you are. And that's what a Kobe Bryant, what a Michael Jackson, what an Elon Musk, what all these guys have to accept, right? That they will never be on the same level of intensity that they are. These are unique animals. And when you compare yourself, right, an outlier, a glitch in a matrix, to those people, you're always going to be disappointed in the people that you surround yourself with. Right? And that's why I don't like when high performers tell me all my friends are losers and I got a bunch of losers around me and they're not as motivated as me. I'm like, nobody ever will be. Right? It's going to be very, very rare that you find a person exactly like yourself. And that's the first question I ask many of my clients. You don't meet a lot of people like yourself, do you? No, not really. I rarely do. It's a very lonely life, right? A lot of people, I just watched a Joe Rogan interview with Mr. Beast as well. And he said, when I was young, my whole life was about YouTube and everybody thought I was weird. And I think a lot of high performers will recognize that, right? That people think they're weird, that they're strange. And I think that right there is early, almost an early childhood trauma and trust in people that they lack a lot of closeness and intimacy towards people, but also in a way, tied back into porn towards women, right? Because what kind of women are you finding if you're at the top of the mountain, right? If you're at the peak, the lion, the king, what kind of women are there that throw themselves at you, right? What kind of options do you have? It creates a pretty bad image of women, right?
In your coaching practice, you work with one-on-one with people in your breakthrough performance program. Explain that program a little bit and your process for helping people become high performers.
Sure. Yeah. Well, usually I actually already deal with high performance, but they don't like to call themselves that because one of the signs of high performance is that they're hypercritical towards themselves. Imposter syndrome, right? So that's why funny the first conversation is, no, I'm not smart, I'm not a high performer. And I'm like, well, that's actually one of the signs of high performance. They doubt themselves and they don't believe in themselves, and then they'll think they're smart, they think they're stupid, and they only see the bad parts of themselves, right? And that's the Dunning-Kruger's, the fact that you think you're smart is probably why you're not smart, right? And if you think you're great, you're probably not that great. And if you think you're stupid, you're probably very smart. Right? So there's a couple of topics that we touch on that we go through together. There's awareness, clarity, structure, growth, and spirituality. And I think those steps are all equally important, but I always like to zoom in on spirituality because I think spirituality has a very bad reputation in coaching. Right? You have a lot of these oil snake salesmen, a lot of people selling weird stuff online like tarot cards and all that stuff. But in a way, spirituality is religion, is believing in something higher than yourself, more important than yourself. Whether it's surrendering yourself to God, to the universe, to Mother Nature, whatever it is, your family, putting something above yourself, right? And believing that there's more to life than just making money, career, and feeling good about yourself. And I think that topic is incredibly important to discuss with these people because they're incredibly selfish and they're very much driven around themselves and what they want, right? And my next short-term goal, and my next short-term goal, and my next short-term goal. And it's also good to discuss how do you want to be remembered? Right? When you leave, how have you left this earth in a better state? But have you put in anything on this planet that makes this place a better place to live for anybody, right? Are your kids gonna follow through with some of the great things that you taught them? I think that in my book is spirituality, and that's what I love to zoom in with them as well.
You mentioned, along with spirituality, you mentioned awareness. What do people need to be aware of?
Well, there's many things, right? But I think one of the things I'll always like to highlight is that what I discussed initially when we kicked off this conversation is that just having a different engine doesn't make you an amazing car, right? It's everything together that works together within the car is what makes the car, right? And every part is equally important. And you leave one thing out of the car and the car is useless. Right? Remove the steering wheel and there's not a great car left, right? So this very simple with a lot of people who grow up as a kid hearing it many, many times over. You're smart, you're gifted, you're intelligent, you're good, right? You're a good boy. All right. Now I start to slowly believe in the fact that I'm actually smart. And because school doesn't challenge these kids enough, right? They get into this mindset of, so success doesn't take any effort, right? Because everything is peanuts for me. So if something is going to take any of my effort, it's probably not the right path, or it means that there's something wrong with me, because things should come easy to me. Compliments and validation should come easy to me. And as a kid, that's the only thing we care about, right? We only care about validation from our parents. Like, what else do we care about? Well, not much, right? So when we are fighting for that validation and we can get that through good results at school, I mean, easy peasy. That's great. Let's do that. Let's get some grades and get validation, and I feel great. Now, you're then now as a kid purely being judged by your engine, right? Just by the potential that your engine has, nothing else, right? Not your motor skills, not your social skills, not whether you can get a girlfriend or not. Nobody's going to bother you if you keep bringing home straight A's. Right? There's a very, very special parent, requires an incredible, insightful, and very smart parent to say, hey boy, I know you're bringing home straight A's. I know your future is bright. You're going to make a lot of money and you're going to be successful. And I'm proud of you. You're getting degrees on top of degrees on top of degrees. What about your social skills? What about developing yourself physically? What about getting a little bit of muscle on those skinny arms? That's a thing that parents feel a little bit, they feel a little bit afraid to touch those topics if a kid is already so successful, right? Am I actually going to push him more? Am I going to expect more from him? He's already doing so great, right? Not knowing that you're expecting him to drive a car with just an engine later on. Right? He has no skills whatsoever, no life skills at all. Besides, he's smart, right? He has a lot of, he's not actually even smart. He just has a lot of potential. Right? And then usually the age where you see it all falls apart with most high performance is college, because that's where just intelligence is not going to cut it anymore. Right? If you have poor social skills in college, those kids are ruthless. They're going to bully you and beat your ass every day. They're going to run you off school. If you have poor organizing skills, it's going to be hard to work together with people, do projects, do science projects. You had bad planning skills. You can maybe ace some tests, but when you get that test at the end of the year and you haven't been showing up every class, you have no idea what the test is about and you're going to fail. So a lot of these high performance, college is the point where they usually drop off. They can kill it all the way up to now we're expecting different things, not just learning and remembering and applying. We're expecting you to organize, social skills, plan, study. That right there is where they usually drop off. And people like Steve Jobs or other people, they quit right at college. And that's very common because it's just a different skill set that is now expected from them. And they're being measured differently than before. And that's why some people say, you know what? I don't care. I'll do something for my own. And other people are going to be very angry at the world. And actually, we have so many people in the world who are simply angry at the world and who are not successful, depressed, addicted to drugs, porn, and are living in their mom's basement at a much higher rate than we have Elon Musk. And that's just the reality of life. Yeah.
Up to this point, we've mostly talked about personal performance, about
Yes.
your own individual goals, your own personal achievements, and achieving your most potential in your own life. You also do corporate coaching for businesses.
Yes.
Is it a different approach for businesses? What are some differences, maybe some similarities as well?
It's actually remarkably similar, but there's of course some differences, and the biggest difference is the thing that makes me so happy and what attracts me to the corporate environment is walking that thin rope between the corporate shareholders and the personal shareholders, right? What does the company want, and what do the individual team members want, right? Because for the team members, we want them to improve, but we also want them to be happy and have wellness and to trust what we do for them. But the company, of course, the bottom line, they want to make money, right? Without money, the company's not sustainable and they can't do what they want to do. So I really love that, almost that limbo that I'm in between those two worlds, where I have to balance those different goals of the different shareholders of what I'm trying to achieve. With a one-on-one clients, it's very simple, right? You get some wins, some small wins, and you get some momentum and get his life going, and he feels better, and we're all happy. But just getting their life in order and getting some small wins is not enough in a corporate environment. There are more things that you have to take into account. So that's one thing that is different and that I truly enjoy. And another part of it is, of course, that we're not only dealing with people who need to learn autonomy and need to learn how to manage their own life, become healthy, become aware, right, have some structure and grow, but we're also dealing with the managers who have to lead these people. And they have to also become aware of what kind of people am I dealing with? And in this world, right, this globalized world who's becoming much more and more globalized by day, people working remotely, big companies innovating and hiring people and buying companies and acquisitions left and right. And then also at the same time, these companies are not just hiring the smartest people from their own country, but they're hiring the smartest people from every country in the world. And everybody's fighting for talent and pulling them, stealing them from each other. So you're getting more and more big companies with the smartest people in the world in the same room, right? So the percentage of smart people in these companies is going to go up, right? Initially, a super high performer in a company is rare, right? You might have one, you might have two, right? And they're the CEO. But now you have these super high elite performers as regular contributors, just a programmer, right? Or maybe a cybersecurity guy, or maybe a mid-level manager. They're everywhere now, right? Because you can hire them, you can find them. And if you can, then why not hire the smartest people you can? But what they're not understanding is, again, is that they're only buying an engine, right? And expecting to have a car, right? You're only buying potential, but you're not buying output. You're not buying performance, right? Output and performance, those come if we build a good car around the engine. And that's life skills, simple life skills, communication skills, right? The soft skills, EQ, all those stuff that the person needs. But the beautiful thing about having these high potentials with low soft skills, with low life skills, is that their potential is here, right? And the soft skills are there. If you pull those soft skills up and get them closer to the level of the potential, they're gonna just skyrocket. Your company output is going to go to the roof, right? But when you do it with a quote unquote regular person, right, which I don't want to say regular or smart, but you know what we mean, right? You do it with a regular person, you can maybe improve them 2 or 3 or 4%, 5%, because there's not so much difference between their intellectual potential and their soft skills, the EQ, right? Usually it's quite on par. But the more you go up in intellect, in IQ, the bigger the difference is, right? The difference between the EQ and the IQ, right? And that's very common among the extremely smart people, right? For example, Elon Musk, right? He's obviously done a lot of self-work, worked very, very hard on himself. But hey, if we see an interview, we definitely see that's a smart guy. He definitely talks like an alien. He thinks like an alien. He stares into the abyss for 30 seconds and then comes with an answer. It's a very interesting guy. It's very fun to look at, but you can already imagine potential problems that an Elon Musk might have if he's just part of your science project, right? As a CEO of a company, amazing. But let's say he's your classmate. You got to do a project with him, right? I mean, that could get challenging. So that's what we're trying to raise awareness around and help companies with. How do you deal with these people? Not just hiring them, but also, getting the output that you want.
You have a great quote about corporate performance where you said, corporate performance is not about avoiding the chaos, it's about embracing the chaos.
Absolutely.
On the surface level, that seems a little counterintuitive. You think you want to kind of control everything and have everything neat and ordered and organized. So what do you mean by that? And what does embracing the chaos look like?
Yeah, well, we see these days, everything is about innovation, right? Whether you want to go to Mars, whether you're developing autonomous driving, whether you're developing crypto solutions, whether you're developing Web 3.0 or the metaverse or NFTs, whatever industry you're in, everything is about innovation. And innovation is chaotic. And you need to create and facilitate space for chaos, because without giving the freedom to people, to these high potential creative people, to make huge mistakes in a vacuum, right? Not with the company-wide liability, but within a vacuum, without giving them the space to make huge mistakes and to take huge risks, you will never truly innovate. And that's really what a lot of companies don't understand, that innovation only comes from the fact that people have made horrible mistakes a couple times before they finally struck gold, right? Whether it's Steve Jobs flopping a couple times with the products that, he thought was going to hit, and then eventually the iPhone hit. Whether it's Microsoft having a couple of huge flops, right? Actually, Microsoft is a company that came with the first tablet and the first supplement, those products that, Apple eventually became successful with, but they can capitalize, but that's a different story. So a lot of these companies, if they don't create room for failure, and if they hyper focus in on, we need structure, we need routine, we need protocols, we need safety, we need these manufacturing systems to be solid and rigid, then those are the companies usually that we see are going to die out, right? Traditional old companies, certain car brands, mobile phone brands like BlackBerry and Nokia, they all decided that the process and the protocol and the trust in what they were doing was higher than the room for innovation, right? And that's usually because innovation is expensive, right? You're investing in something that's not guaranteeing an outcome. There's no ROI that is fixed, that you can say, if I put $1 billion in this, I'm gonna get $2 billion back, right? So we need people, those people, especially the smart people, facilitate them to make huge mistakes. And that's what I mean by embracing the chaos, that the chaos and the madness that comes with innovation is not only a byproduct, it is integral to the process. We need it, right? We need those mistakes, because in hindsight, some of those biggest mistakes the company made were, the smartest decisions, ended up to be the biggest lessons or the smartest decisions.
So the chaos can lead to failure, but it can also lead to great success. I think it's kind of the analogy of you go up to the plate swinging for the fences. Yeah, you're probably going to strike out more often than not, but one of those times you're going to get to hit the game-winning home run. And so it's being willing to accept those failures in order to get the successes.
Absolutely. And the way the world works now is that every day I wake up, I'm like, what the hell is happening? Every single day, right? Whether it's an NFT, metaverse, Web 3.0, another crypto coin, another this, another that. We're just now in this, we're in this waterfall, right? And it's not going to stop anytime soon. It's only going to get worse. And the world and technology is shifting at 10 times the rate that any scientist or curriculum can keep up with. Right? Schools, professors, scientists, data analysts, they cannot possibly keep up with the rate of how fast this is growing, right? At the moment when people now are finally forming their opinions about crypto, there are already thousands of new billionaires created by crypto. So now we have the data, now we have the information, now we have the experts, now we have some classes and schools by professors, but people have already made their money and everybody's a billionaire. So companies have seen this now, and they understand that early funding is becoming more and more integral to their business, right? We need to catch these innovations as soon as they happen. And that comes with a risk, right? It does, it comes with a risk. But we're seeing now with NFTs and also with Web 3.0 and also with the metaverse of Facebook, which even though Facebook took a hit, I promise you, within a couple of years, we'll be all putting on these glasses and have these controllers in the hand, and we'll be in meetings and we'll be in restaurants and we'll be traveling all over the world. Mark Zuckerberg doesn't give a fuck about these 25% drop in his stock. He knows. Smart guy. He knows the future. He knows this is going to happen. And he'll take a 25% hit because soon everybody gonna have those VR glasses and they're gonna be living in his metaverse. And I think he understands, right, the chaos that came with that innovation. He's embracing it. He's seeing the value of the innovation, and everything else is just noise, right? It comes with it. He's open to it, but he's super committed to his vision, right? He's ready for all the heat that's going to come from it. And those are the companies usually you're going to see that are going to last, because Facebook could also just double down on Facebook and rack up that ad money. But in turn, they took a huge risk and invented something that they knew 50% of the world was going to be like, get this shit out of here, man. I'm not going to put on glasses in my house and walk around in the digital world. It's TV and radio all over again, right? He knew this. He's not stupid, right? So I see that is what's embracing the chaos is, right? And there's a lot of car brands right now shaken up by Tesla, knowing that they have to go electric, knowing that they have to go autonomous, knowing that they need the software in their car to be much, much better. Well, again, if you want to shake up old Fords or old Opel or old Volkswagen structure, right? The manufacturing structure, I mean, that's going to cause a lot of chaos, right? I mean, they've been famous about keeping their products lean, affordable, and now, everything is going to go a little bit on the higher end. And we need totally different people to meddle with a process that always has been around traditional manufacturing. And now all of a sudden, it's a place where video game nerds gather, right? And they have to talk with the car jocks like this. How do we manage the video game nerds and the car jocks? And these guys used to bully each other at school, and now these nerds are coming and making 5 times the money of a car designer. It's insane. So there's a lot of chaos happening in the world.
Yeah, I think it's about being proactive with that chaos. That's the successful companies like Tesla went out and did something that nobody else had done. Now everybody else is reacting. Yes. Perfect example, I think, of that. I know you're not in the States, but the Super Bowl, in the Super Bowl commercials, every single car commercial at the Super Bowl this year was an electric vehicle. Mm-hmm. And not a single one of them was Tesla, but they're all the other ones all reacting to what they did.
Yeah, definitely. That's innovation, right? And now, of course, when you know that innovation has already been put into place and you can predict the ROI, you can predict what your investment is going to do. There's more safety and security, and they're more confident in their decision making. Of course, you're going to jump into that now, but you should have jumped in it earlier and embraced the chaos that came with it, right? And all the fighting and internal bickering and issues and money lost and investments. Again, that's a risk that every company has to calculate for themselves. But I'm happily Tesla shook things up and forced companies to take some risks. Even though you might be an electric car fan or not, I think any company who comes in and disrupts a traditional market that has been raking in money for, over 100 years now, by doing the same thing over and over again. Right? Very lazy designs, very lazy manufacturing, no innovation at all. And then our guy Elon Musk comes in and he creates a spaceship almost comparable to these cars that are out there, right? I think that's that way of disrupting the market. That's good for business in any field.
I think one thing that you're hearing a lot more about nowadays that keeps companies from being innovative like that, from reaching their full potential, but also individuals from achieving high performance is burnout. We hear a lot about that now. You've talked about that some in some of your videos and writings. That's something a lot of people deal with. That's something I've personally dealt with. So what causes burnout, what you can do to prevent it, and what can you do to stop it once it starts?
Well, 2 things I think are highlighted to me with the clientele that I work with. I'm not a burnout expert, but I've seen one thing that we already spoke about, the obsession with balance, wanting to do everything perfectly or at least great, right? I want to be fit. I want to be healthy. I want to be the best dad. I want to be a great networker. I want to be best in my career. I want to be a great tennis player. And I also want to be smart. And I also want to learn about topics, and I want to read. I want to learn a new language. of course, that's going to put a strain on you, and also on your physical well-being, in a way that potentially, you might snap, and you might need to recover from that, right? It's an injury, pretty much. It's a brain injury, right? Just overextending yourself over and over again, uh, reaching that stress limit that your body's telling you, hey, bro, this is the limit that we can handle right now, and consistently ignoring that signal that your body is giving you. Yeah, that's going to eventually lead you into a permanent state of stress, where you don't even recognize what is stress and what is normal, and choosing in the store which brand of milk that you want to buy is going to give you stress, right? And I think that just comes from overwhelming yourself with balance. I want to do everything. Another part of that is what I really love, is what I discuss with many corporates and with many personal coaching clients as well, is a cousin of burnout, so to speak, and that's called moral injury. Now, there was a research done by some scientists who researched PTSD veterans, right? Veterans with PTSD who came from the war, and they saw that these people did not have the classical description of PTSD, but they have signs of PTSD. So they were looking into burnout. They were looking, maybe they're just burnt out, right? But they wasn't really burnt out, because they were still able to do their work. They could go to their job, they can go work, they can go do a tour in Afghanistan, go back, but they were definitely struggling with signs of PTSD. So then they did this research again with doctors in a hospital, especially during COVID. They did this again. When they spoke with all of these doctors, they told them, what is causing you to feel burnt out? Even though they weren't sitting at home and they weren't lying in bed and they weren't exhausted and they weren't saying, I don't want to work anymore, but they were definitely burnt out. So they were asked them, what is causing this for you? And they said, I feel that I don't know what's important anymore. I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing. When I'm doing my work as a doctor, am I helping the patient? Am I helping the insurance company? Am I helping the director of the hospital? Am I helping my executive manager? Am I helping myself in my career? I'm not aligned with my morals anymore. And that consistently going against your own morals and values over a long period of time, that can lead to a similar form of burnout. But with high performers, because their limits are quite high and they can push themselves, they're really resilient mentally, they don't have to burn out to feel and to be burnt out, right? So clinically, they're not burnt out. The doctor won't say they're burnt out, but they're on 50% of performance, right? And they're horrible at work. They're a nightmare to be around. They're not nice. They're not good in collaboration. And they're a liability for the company, but they're not sick. So how can you send them home, right? They're still doing enough, right? Because for a high performer, 50 or 60% is enough. 100%, and poof, they'll become the CEO. But on 50 or 60%, they can easily maintain their job, and get like a reasonable or good reviews every year. So that's a very interesting topic, which I love. Moral injury is something that everybody should read up on, because I feel in these modern worlds where our personal values are becoming more and more important, I'm going to see a lot of people not actually burning out, but I like to call it spiritually burnt out, that you're just doing something that goes against what you believe in over and over and over and over again until you just finally snap. That can be anything. For me personally, when I worked in the music industry, I was definitely struggling with moral injury, because I loved discovering and helping and coaching talent, but I hated the industry with a passion.
How do people who are high performance, how do they avoid the burnout then? How can you be proactive to prevent it?
There's a lot of different ways to manage that. First of all, when we talk about burnout, we really need to assess, what are we talking about? Are we talking about traditional burnout where there's no problem with your job, there's no problem with your employer, there's just a problem with you are putting too much pressure on yourself and therefore burning out? Then we just gotta focus in on those life skills, right? We gotta focus in prioritizing, we gotta focus in giving time to certain things and not wanting to do everything at the same time, but making a year plan, right? Making a plan for my year. The coming 12 months, I'm gonna do these different things and I'm gonna develop these different skill sets, right? If it's a moral injury, then we need to look at your career and your decisions that you've made throughout your career. And where are you working? And is that aligned with what you believe in, right? For example, a person might come to Tesla or SpaceX and say, I really want to bring us to Mars because I believe that humans need to be a multiplanetary species. That's a great, beautiful value to have, right? If that's your morals, if that's your values, beautiful. Now, you might end up in a position that actually has nothing to do with making humans a multiplanetary species. You might be doing administration. You might be doing lobbying, political lobbying, right? And that can cause you to feel conflicted so deeply, so personally, that you are now thinking, but this is not what I came here to do. And I feel I'm being used. And that's the worst thing in the world, right? Being used for something. So when you are putting yourself in that position where you feel that you're doing something that is not adding to your personal values, you feel like you're a fraud. And you feel corrupted in a way, right? Because if you're that easily influenced by a company to do something that you don't believe in doing just for money, what kind of person are you? And that's a question people are going to ask themselves subconsciously sometimes, right? They're going to create a huge conflict within themselves. So for people like that, it's really good to look at the career and one, are their values and morals actually realistic? Can a company live up to them, right? And if they can, are they responsible for your personal values and morals? And two, maybe we can express those values and morals in other environments. Maybe it doesn't have to be within the company. Maybe we can do volunteering or do things in our spare time that more aligns with the person that we want to become. Work is not everything, even though the high performance do believe that.
So one of the things you kind of alluded to it here just now, one of the things you said to do is helping people achieve that alignment between their values and their actions. What does that look like and how do you do that?
Well, alignment, first of all, is based on what are your values, right? And that really usually boils down to, in my opinion, a life purpose. And a life purpose should always be based on the basic principle of helping other people. I don't care how you do it, but if your purpose does not include a form of helping other people, it's a shit purpose. I don't care what you're doing in life. I don't respect it. That's simple. That's just my personal approach. And if a person or a client would say, well, I don't agree with that, coach, and I'm not your coach, I don't want to work with you, find somebody else. I want you to find something in your life that is built on the principle of helping other people. Right? And whatever it is, any person in the world, I believe, great performance, a good chunk of them, close to, I would say 90%, do it based on, I want to improve the lives of the people around me somehow, right? Or I want to solve a problem in some way. Even Mark Zuckerberg, that we demonize so much and that we shit on Facebook all the time, right? As we should, because sometimes he deserves it, right? But even he says, I am simply passionate about connecting people, right? And before Facebook, it was difficult to connect people all over the world, to find family that you missed out for years, to find a community of people when you feel lonely and bullied at school, to find a girlfriend when you don't know how to find them in the city that you live. Whatever way, he believes in connecting people and helping people. So that's first, right? I believe you should have helping other people in your purpose. Now, the values that you build on top of that can be, you can go on a deep meditative book reading literature journey of finding them, or you can just start by self-improvement and shape them as you go. Because for me, I was not clear on my values in the beginning of my career. I'm very honest. In the beginning of my career, like 10 years ago, I thought, okay, let me just teach this stuff. Let me just learn this counseling thing here in this center where they want to mentor me. And then let me learn about high intelligence. And then let me start a company and make a lot of money. That was really my intention. And that was a bad purpose because I burnt out also in my previous job. I was done, man. I was down from the count. And that was really about the short-term chase of those lower values, right? Just money and validation. And then when I got a little bit of money, I noticed like, wow, this doesn't have the effect that I wished it had. I was expecting something else. I have 10K now. I was homeless before, and I got $10,000. I'm like, damn, I thought this was going to make a big impact in my life, and it doesn't. It's kind of disappointing. So those moments hit me, a couple of those moments back to back, traveling to Dubai, traveling to Croatia, traveling to Thailand. And for the first time being able to travel, those hits me too. Like, wow, I thought traveling was going to be like, this is it. This is Nirvana. This is life. And I made it. But yeah, that also didn't really feel like it. And then I had to step back a little bit and discover, so what do I want 90% of my life to be, right? What Jordan Peterson says as well, it's about, we focus so much of our time on 5 or 10% of our life, right? And 5 or 10% of our life is, dealing with our coworkers, or traveling, or doing luxurious things, or, spending money on cars or whatever. 90% of our time, we're, spending time with our cat, wife, kids, sitting on the couch, eating dinner, eating lunch, eating breakfast, drinking coffee. That's really 90% of our life. So I personally would like to spend that 90% with my family. So that's a value for me, right? That's what I care about. Now, other people like Elon Musk would say, well, the 90% of my life, I would like to spend on bringing us to Mars. I believe he does. I actually truly believe he spends 90% of his life working to bring us to Mars. And that's beautiful. That's his value, right? And for him, it's his purpose in life. And again, it's rooted into the basic principle of helping other people. So I always like to give people that idea of, you can find them or you can shape them, but in both ways, you need to figure out for yourself, what do I want to do and spend most of my time on, right? 80, 90% of my life.
So if someone's been listening to this podcast and hearing you speak on performance and feels like, hey, I'm not really performing up to my potential, I'm not performing at the level I want to be at, and I want to avoid some of these downsides that we've talked about, how do they go about starting the process of becoming a high performer?
Interesting. Well, first of all, I think we shouldn't gatekeep high performance. I don't like that. I'm not a gatekeeper of high performance. I'm not the person to tell you you're a high performer, you're a low performer, you're a medium performer. I think everybody has the potential and to access high performance. I don't think everybody is a high performer at all times, right? High performance can be a phase or periodically. And also, I don't think it's inevitable that we're always going to be a high performer, right? Most likely, we're going to have very long phases of life where we're going to be a very low performer, right? A lot of these basketball players, as you notice, right after their career, most of them become pretty horrible performers, right? They become fat, slouchy, bad posture, the physique is not great, start to gamble, beat up their wife, get into crazy situations, get into fights, start drinking, right? And that's a pretty big chunk of these NFL and basketball guys, right? Because they lose all structure and they lose all competitive drive, and they were so used to authority and people telling them what to do, and now they have nothing anymore. Besides the fact they got beat on their head a couple of times, that definitely doesn't help the executive functions. So now you have this time bomb, right, with no purpose, no reason to live, at home all day with a ton of money. That's not a great spot to be in. So, the greatest, right? I don't know, who's the big guy who's always at ESPN? I forgot his name. Is it Shaq? I think it's Shaq. Yeah,
Shaq.
I'm not really
Shaquille
into
O'Neal.
basketball. Shaquille O'Neal. Yeah, I'm not big into basketball, but Shaquille O'Neal, I think, is an incredibly intelligent guy, because he knew, I need to remain in this momentum and keep doing something. I cannot just spend 5 years on cocaine and hookers and on my boat in South France. I have to keep this momentum going, or else I'm going to lose my mind. Right? I've been this competitive animal for 30 years straight. I have to do something that is still competitive, whether it's in business, whether it's on TV, whether it's, something that itches me, that scratches that itch. And I think that's smart. And I think a lot of people need to be aware of, we are going to fall into low performance. Very, very likely that your whole life is not going to be high performance, but smart people plan ahead. and they strategize for that. So if they are wondering if they're not performing the way they want to, first of all, they need to realize that that's quite normal. I mean, you won't be a high performer your whole life, and you're going to have phases that you're going to be pretty horrible. But we need to design our lives in a way that still allows us to show up when it matters, right? When it actually matters, are we able to shift into that sixth gear and go and perform at those moments, right? And that's, for me, as a business owner, something new that I've learned from that 9 to 5 mentality previously, where I was in, now into having a global team of 10 people. I need to just perform at the moments when it matters. The rest of the day, I can, it doesn't really matter. Like, I can drink coffee or just play video game. But in the meeting with a client, or with reviewing my team, or with coming up with a new budget or whatever, that's where I have to show up, right? And I think that's important for somebody who wants to get the high performance. Realize that a high performer is only defined by a couple of very key moments in their career, right? We know as well, even Kobe Bryant, right? His career, probably, I'm not a big basketball guy, but I assume it's similar to other sports, where his career is most likely defined by a couple of key moments where, if he would not have shown up at that time, we would have looked at him very differently, right? Same goes with soccer players and football players, and certain finals or certain cups and certain leagues, that if they just didn't have it at that time and it didn't perform and it didn't win, then we wouldn't look at them as one of the greatest. Right. So I think that's a point for a lot of people to come to terms with, that it's not about being on all the time, right? It's about being on in the right moments.
Well, Bahman, this has been a incredible conversation. Where can people go to learn more about you and your coaching and what you do?
Appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. Well, they can go to coachbahman.com, hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, whatever. And again, I know I'm not for everybody. I know I'm very focused in on high performance, and I believe in everybody has an intellectual potential. I'm not a person that will help you deal with a porn addiction, for example. I'm not going to talk about how you've been bullied in the past and how that's such a sad life story. No, we're going to talk about performance. If you want to perform, if you want to perform at the moments that matter, if you want to really dig deep and find the reasons for why you're not performing and how to move forward, then we can work together. I'm all about accountability. I'm all about taking ownership, autonomy. I don't like people who blame other people all the time. I like people who blame themselves and who take full ownership of all of their strengths and, most importantly, their weaknesses. So if that sounds something that you want to do, then hit me up on Twitter. I think right now, we're on a waiting list right now, but I'm always happy to meet people, do discovery sessions, do 30 minutes, whatever. So yeah, thank you for that, man.
So Coach Bahman, thanks again for joining me today.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it. Stay safe.
This has been an episode of the Into the Wilderness podcast. This is Timothy Regal. Thank you for listening. For additional content and to learn more about Into the Wilderness, visit www.intothewildernessblog.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and all other social media at Timothy Regal. TimothyReigle. If you're like me and many other men, you've struggled with porn. I was addicted for over 15 years and thought I would never break free. But through accountability, hard work, and never giving up, I found freedom from porn and sex addiction. If you're fighting the same battle, know there is hope. You can defeat this, but you cannot do it alone. That's why I offer one-on-one coaching to walk beside you in your battle. I'll provide personal guidance, support, and encouragement, and most importantly, accountability to keep you on track and help you reach your goals. So if you're ready to finally quit porn for good, if you're ready to put in the hard work, and if you're ready to finally take control of your life back, click on the link in the show notes to go to www.intothewildernessblog.com or DM me on Twitter or other social media to get started in your path to freedom today.